My name is Julia Scott, and I'm 32 years old. Looking back now, the signs were everywhere. They were just subtle enough that I convinced myself love was louder than doubt. Michael Turner and I were 2 weeks away from our wedding. 2 weeks from walking down an aisle paid for almost entirely by his parents' $200,000 contribution. 2 weeks from the country club reception his mother had been bragging about since Christmas. 2 weeks from what I thought was forever. And I was working overtime to help cover the rest. I'm a project manager at a consulting firm. Practical, organized, not exactly the spiritual awakening type. I believed in effort, in building something brick by brick. Michael believed in energy. That shift started about 4 months ago when he met Daniel Hayes. Daniel was the new yoga instructor at the studio Michael joined after claiming he needed to de-stress from wedding planning. I encouraged it. I thought it was healthy. At first, it was harmless. Daniel says my hips are holding trauma, Michael told me one night over dinner. I laughed. Your hips? He says trauma manifests in the body. And I thought it manifested in bad financial decisions, I teased. He didn't laugh. That should have been my first warning. Soon, yoga wasn't just twice a week. It became 4 times. Then private sessions. Then alignment workshops. He started using phrases like, I'm evolving. You're not operating at the same vibration. We need to transcend traditional labels. Traditional labels. Like fiancé, he became distant, physically present, emotionally floating somewhere else. Still, he kissed my forehead every morning. Still told his parents I was the best thing that ever happened to him. Still approved floral arrangements. I told myself stress does strange things to people. 2 weeks before the ceremony, I left work early. I wanted to surprise him with dinner. His favorite takeout from that overpriced Thai place downtown. When I walked into the house, I heard laughter upstairs. Not TV laughter. Real laughter. Male laughter. Low, intimate. For a second, my brain refused to process it. Michael said Daniel sometimes came over for meditation sessions. Meditation. In our bedroom? I climbed the stairs slowly. Every step felt heavier. The bedroom door was half closed. I pushed it open, and I don't think I'll ever forget what I saw. Michael, my fiancé, in our bed. Not meditating. Not aligning chakras. Not transcending anything. He and Daniel weren't doing yoga poses. They were doing things no instructor should ever do with a student. Michael saw me first. Julia, wait. Daniel scrambled for his clothes. And in that suspended moment, something inside me didn't break. It calcified. I set the takeout bag down gently on the dresser. Is this, I asked calmly, part of your hip trauma therapy? Michael actually had the audacity to say, it's not what you think. I laughed. Then enlighten me. He stood there, bare, trembling. Not from shame. From fear of consequences. This isn't cheating, he said. It's spiritual awakening. Daniel has helped me unlock suppressed parts of myself. Suppressed parts. In my bed. 2 weeks before our wedding. I felt humiliation first. Then rage. Then something colder. Pack a bag, I told him. You can align your chakras somewhere else. He kept talking about growth, about authenticity, about how I was limiting his expansion. But I wasn't listening anymore. Because while he was talking, I noticed his phone on the nightstand. Unlocked. Buzzing. A message preview from Daniel. Last night was transcendent. Can't wait to feel you again. I picked up the phone. And that was the moment I stopped being heartbroken. And started being strategic. I didn't scream. That's what surprised Michael the most. I didn't throw things. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse into hysterics the way he probably expected. I just stood there, holding his phone, reading message after message that made it very clear this wasn't some spontaneous chakra alignment. This had been going on for weeks, maybe months. Photos, explicit ones, sent from my house, in my bed, while I was at work pulling overtime to help fund our dream wedding. Julia, please, Michael said, stepping closer, trying to soften his voice. You're reacting from ego. I looked up at him slowly. Ego? Yes. This is bigger than physicality. Daniel has helped me access parts of myself I've buried since childhood. And you had to access them on 800 thread count sheets I picked out? Daniel had the decency to look uncomfortable. He was halfway dressed now, eyes darting between us, like he'd accidentally wandered into someone else's tragedy. This isn't about betrayal, Michael insisted. It's about awakening. There it was again. That word. Awakening. As if sleeping with your yoga instructor was some holy ritual. I scrolled further. My stomach tightened. They weren't just intimate. They mocked me. One message from Michael read, Julia would never understand this level of connection. Daniel responded, she operates from fear. You operate from light. Fear. Light. What a convenient rebranding for cheating. I calmly opened the screenshot function. Click. 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 Michael's face drained of color. What are you doing? Archiving enlightenment. Julia, don't be petty. Petty. That word flipped a switch. 2 weeks, Michael, I said quietly. 2 weeks before we stood in front of 200 people and promised forever. He ran his hands through his hair. I was going to tell you. When? During the vows? Daniel cleared his throat. Maybe I should. Yes, I cut in. You should. He left without another word. Michael sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly looking smaller. Not spiritual, not enlightened. Just exposed. You're making this uglier than it has to be, he muttered. Uglier? I thought about the guest list his mother had obsessively curated, the country club seating chart, the rehearsal dinner menu tasting I endured with a smile, and the $200,000 his parents had already wired for the wedding. An idea formed. Cold. Precise. You're right, I said softly. It doesn't have to be ugly. His shoulders relaxed. He mistook calm for forgiveness. He always did. I walked downstairs, sat at the kitchen island, and forwarded every screenshot to myself. Then I composed an email. To Richard Turner and Eleanor Turner. Subject line, you deserve the truth before the wedding. I attached the screenshots. No commentary. No insults. Just evidence. Then I pressed send. Upstairs, Michael was pacing. When his phone buzzed seconds later, the panic on his face was immediate. My dad. Another buzz. My mom. Another. Julia, what did you do? I met his eyes. I aligned transparency. His father called within 3 minutes. I answered on speaker. Richard Turner did not sound enlightened. What the hell is this? He barked. Documentation, I replied evenly. You vindictive little opportunist. There it was. The narrative shift. Not, my son betrayed his fiancée, but, you embarrassed our family. Eleanor's sobbing was audible in the background. Do you have any idea what the country club will say? She cried. I almost laughed. Not, my son cheated. But what will people think? Michael tried to grab the phone. Dad, it's not what it looks like. Richard snapped. Then why does it look like you're naked in bed with another man? Silence. Heavy. Ugly. You're destroying this family, Richard growled at me. No, I said quietly. I think your son handled that. Michael ended the call abruptly. You had no right, he hissed. No right? You humiliated me. I stared at him. You humiliated me in my own bedroom. He shifted tactics. His voice softened. Julia, we can work through this. Work through? How? We open the relationship. I blinked. You're serious? Yes, labels are restrictive. Monogamy is a social construct. And vows? Also constructs. He stepped closer. I love you. That hasn't changed. Love. A word he used like incense. Meant to cloud everything. You love stability, I corrected. You love the house, the wedding, the trust fund. His jaw tightened. That hit. Another buzz interrupted us. But this time it wasn't his father. It was a message from an unknown number. I glanced at the preview on my own phone. Vanessa Reed. You don't know me. But I dated Michael before you. If he's still doing the guru thing, you need to call me. My chest tightened. I opened it. He did this to me too. Different mentor, same spiritual excuse. He leaves when the fantasy collapses. The room suddenly felt colder. I looked up at Michael. How many awakenings have you had? He froze. And that's when I realized something even worse than the cheating. This wasn't new. This was a pattern. Before I could process that fully, the doorbell rang. Michael paled. That's Daniel. Of course it was. He walked to the door before I could stop him. And moments later, Daniel Hayes stepped into my house again, this time fully dressed, carrying a yoga mat like some kind of ceremonial offering. We're here to help you understand, Daniel said gently. Understand. Michael stood beside him, united, aligned. We think a spiritual intervention would be healthier than legal drama, Michael added. I stared at them both, my fiancé, and the man he cheated with, standing in my living room, 2 weeks before my wedding, telling me I needed enlightenment. And in that moment, I felt something crystallize inside me. Not heartbreak. Not rage. Power. Get out, I said calmly. Michael hesitated. I mean it, I continued. Take your awakening. Take your intervention. Take your alignment. Daniel shifted awkwardly. Michael whispered, You'll regret this. I held his gaze. No, I said softly. I don't think I will. The legal threats started the next morning. At 8:12 a.m., I received a formal-looking email from a law firm whose name sounded expensive enough to intimidate someone less steady than me. Subject line, cease and desist, defamation and emotional distress. I read it twice. Then I made coffee. Michael's father, Richard Turner, was accusing me of malicious intent, claiming I had distributed private content to damage his son's reputation, suggesting I could be sued for emotional distress and reputational harm. Reputational harm. I forwarded the email to a lawyer friend from college. Her response came quickly. Julia, you sent evidence of infidelity to immediate family members who financially funded a wedding. That's not defamation, that's transparency. He has no case. I exhaled slowly. So this was the angle. Intimidate me into silence. But something else had happened overnight. Michael's trust fund had been temporarily frozen. Apparently, Richard Turner might protect appearances, but he did not tolerate public humiliation. And nothing humiliated him more than scandal. The country club gossip spread faster than wildfire. By noon, 2 bridesmaids had texted me asking if the wedding was still happening. By 3 p.m., the venue manager called. "I'm very sorry," she said gently, "but per the contract, cancellation within 30 days forfeits all deposits. $200,000 gone." Michael's mother called that evening. "Not to apologize, to cry." "Do you know what this has done to us?" Eleanor sobbed. "Our friends, the committee, the board." I waited. She never once asked how I was. I ended the call politely. Then I blocked her. Michael, meanwhile, had moved out. First to Daniel's apartment. Then, according to Vanessa's follow-up messages, to his car. Vanessa Reed and I met for coffee 3 days later. She was calm, sharp-eyed, the kind of woman who had already processed her anger. "He attaches himself to people who make him feel profound," she said plainly. "First, it was a meditation coach, then a life strategist, now a yoga instructor." "Why?" I asked. She shrugged. "Because it makes him feel special, chosen, evolving. And when the fantasy fades, he blames the person closest to him." That would have been me. Vanessa leaned forward. "He'll come back when Daniel gets tired of him." I wanted to believe she was wrong. But that night, at 1:37 a.m., my phone lit up. "Michael, drunk." "Michael, you destroyed everything." I stared at the message. A few seconds later, "You couldn't handle my growth." Then, "Daniel says your energy was suppressing me." There it was again. Energy. Growth. Suppression. Never accountability. I didn't respond. The next morning, I heard from a mutual friend that Daniel had stopped posting photos with Michael. By the end of the week, Daniel's social media was scrubbed clean of him entirely. When the money dries up, enlightenment gets inconvenient. Michael showed up at my door 4 days later. He looked different. Not spiritually transformed. Just tired. His hair unwashed. His jaw unshaven. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I didn't open the door fully. "Daniel?" I asked. He swallowed. "He needs space." Of course he did. "And your parents?" "They froze my access. They said I embarrassed the family." He almost sounded shocked, as if consequences were an unexpected side effect. "I can't believe you told them," he muttered. I tilted my head. "You mean I exposed the truth? You weaponized it." "No," I said evenly. "You did." He ran a hand over his face. "I don't have anywhere stable to stay." I studied him carefully. This was the part Vanessa warned me about. When the fantasy collapses. He stepped closer. "We can fix this." I almost admired the confidence. "How?" I asked. "We cancel the wedding quietly. Tell people we mutually decided. Start fresh. No one needs to know details. They already know." His eyes darkened. "You enjoyed humiliating me." That accusation hurt, because humiliation was never the goal. Self-preservation was. "I enjoyed not being lied to anymore," I replied. He flinched. "Daniel manipulated me," he said suddenly. "He pushed boundaries." I watched the narrative shift in real time. First it was awakening. Now it was manipulation. "So you had no agency?" I asked calmly. He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. I opened the door just wide enough to hand him a small envelope. Inside was his engagement ring. "I'm not your anchor," I said softly, "and I'm not your excuse." He stared at the ring like it might burn him. "You'll regret this," he whispered again. "No," I said gently. "I won't." He left, and for the first time in weeks, the house felt quiet. Not empty, quiet. 2 days later, I heard through mutual friends that Daniel had distanced himself because Michael brought too much drama. Spiritual alignment doesn't thrive in financial instability. Michael picked up a temporary retail job downtown. His trust fund remained restricted. The country club invitations were quietly retracted. The wedding venue kept every cent. And yet somehow, according to Michael's drunk messages, I was the villain. I ruined his journey. I ruined his evolution. I ruined his enlightenment. But as I sat alone in the house that night, I realized something strange. I didn't feel ruined. I felt clear. And clarity, I've learned, is far more powerful than awakening. The wedding date came and went quietly. No aisle, no orchestra, no white dress hanging in the hallway waiting to be zipped. Just a calendar notification I deleted without ceremony. For a few days before it, I thought it might break me. Instead, it did something else. It sobered me. The house felt different now. Not haunted, not tragic, just honest. Every room had been rearranged, not physically, but emotionally. The illusion was gone. Michael tried one more time. 3 nights before what would have been our rehearsal dinner, he sent a voice memo. His voice was thick, not crying, not quite sober either. Julia, and then I've been thinking, maybe this whole thing was supposed to happen. Maybe it was part of the universe pushing us to redefine love. Redefine love. I didn't even press reply. Instead, I scrolled through our old photos. Us hiking. Us laughing over burnt pancakes. Us at Christmas with his parents. Eleanor's arm around my shoulders like I already belonged. I realized something then. I wasn't grieving Michael. I was grieving the version of him that never existed. The grounded fiancé. The man who believed in vows. The partner who wouldn't invite someone else into our bed 2 weeks before forever. That version had only ever lived in my imagination. Reality was simpler. Michael loved intensity. He loved feeling chosen, guided, elevated. And when that intensity faded, he went searching for the next person who made him feel special. Vanessa had been right. He attached to mentors, to gurus, to anyone who reflected back a more exciting version of himself. And when that mirror cracked, he blamed whoever was closest. This time, that had been me. Daniel officially disappeared a week later. No more yoga sessions, no more private alignment. Apparently, Michael had become emotionally overwhelming. That phrase made me laugh harder than I expected. Emotionally overwhelming. From the man who once told me I operated from fear. His parents cut him off financially for the foreseeable future. Richard Turner didn't call me again. But I heard through mutual contacts that he told people the engagement ended due to incompatibility. Incompatibility. That was one way to phrase it. Michael began working an entry-level position at a sporting goods store downtown. From trust fund beneficiary to folding yoga mats for minimum wage. There was irony in that. He texted me again the night he started. I never meant to hurt you. That one felt different. Less ego, more fatigue. But even that wasn't accountability. He didn't say, I chose to betray you. He said, I never meant to hurt you. As if pain were an accident. A side effect. A spilled drink you could wipe up with an apology. I typed a response, then deleted it. Silence was stronger. Meanwhile, something shifted inside me. The honeymoon fund, money I'd saved for a 2-week trip to Japan, was still sitting untouched. At first, I couldn't look at it. Japan had been our shared dream. Temples, street markets, late-night ramen in Tokyo. Now it felt contaminated. Until one evening, I opened my laptop and hovered over the booking site. My finger hesitated. Then I clicked. 1 ticket. Solo. Departure in 3 weeks. The confirmation email arrived instantly, and instead of sadness, I felt something steady. Not revenge, not triumph, just ownership. I wasn't going to let his choices shrink my world. Vanessa texted me when she saw a mutual friend post about the canceled wedding. You handled this better than I did, she wrote. I cried for months before I left him. I stared at that message, then replied, I cried too, just not in front of him, because that's the part no one sees. The quiet grief. The night staring at the ceiling wondering how you misread someone so completely. The humiliation replaying in your mind on a loop. But grief doesn't equal regret, and humiliation doesn't equal weakness. If anything, it clarified what I would never tolerate again. The night before my flight to Japan, Michael sent one last drunk text. You ruined my spiritual journey. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I finally replied, No, Michael, you confuse desire with destiny. That's not enlightenment. That's immaturity. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. He never answered. I blocked him after that. Not out of anger, out of peace. Because closure isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you decide. And as I zipped my suitcase and looked around the quiet house one last time, I realized something that surprised me. I didn't hate him. I didn't even resent Daniel. They were just catalysts. Painful ones. But catalysts all the same. The real shift wasn't spiritual. It was practical. I chose myself. And that choice changed everything. Tokyo in the spring doesn't care about your broken engagement. That was the first thing I realized. The city moved with its own rhythm. Trains sliding in with mechanical precision, neon lights humming against the night sky, strangers bowing politely before disappearing into crowds. No one knew who I was. No one knew I was supposed to be on a honeymoon. And somehow that anonymity felt like oxygen. The first night, I sat alone at a small ramen bar tucked into a narrow alley in Shinjuku. Steam rose from my bowl, fogging my glasses. Around me, couples leaned close to each other, sharing bites, whispering, laughing. For a moment, grief brushed against me again. Not for Michael, for the future I had planned. Then I did something radical. I stayed. I didn't rush back to the hotel room to cry. I finished my meal slowly. I ordered dessert. I walked through the city alone. And with every step, something inside me recalibrated. Not spiritually. Practically. I wasn't half of a broken story. I was a whole person who had avoided a lifetime of pretending. Over the next week, I wandered through temples in Kyoto, stood under cherry blossoms that looked like they had been painted onto the sky, and watched strangers make wishes without ever knowing how fragile life can feel 2 weeks before a wedding. There's a particular kind of clarity that comes when you're thousands of miles away from the person who tried to rewrite your reality. And in that distance, I saw everything cleanly. Michael didn't cheat because he found enlightenment. He cheated because he lacked discipline. He didn't seek awakening. He sought attention. And when I stopped being a mirror that reflected admiration back at him, he found someone else who would. That wasn't destiny. It was pattern. On my last night in Tokyo, I received one final email from him. Subject, closure. I almost deleted it without opening it, but curiosity won. Julia, I've started therapy. Not spiritual therapy. Real therapy. I see now that I chase validation. I hurt you because I was afraid of being ordinary. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I read it twice. And for the first time since that night in our bedroom, I believed him. Not because he sounded poetic, but because he sounded stripped of performance. No chakras. No vibration. No grand cosmic language. Just a flawed man admitting fear. I didn't respond. Not out of bitterness, but because apology doesn't require audience to be valid. Some closures are silent. When I returned home, the house felt lighter. I redecorated, moved furniture, changed the sheets, donated the wedding decor. Not angrily, just decisively. A few weeks later, at a friend's small dinner gathering, I met someone new. His name was Ethan Carter. He worked in structural engineering. Calm, grounded, the kind of man who asked questions and actually waited for the answers. At one point, someone jokingly mentioned yoga instructors. Ethan laughed softly and said, "Anyone who sleeps with their clients probably shouldn't be trusted with their spine alignment." I nearly choked on my drink. Not because it was cruel, because it was simple, clear. No mysticism, no justification, just boundaries. We started slowly. Coffee, long walks, no grand declarations, no dramatic intensity, just consistency. And consistency, I learned, is far more attractive than enlightenment. Occasionally, mutual acquaintances update me on Michael. He's still working retail, still rebuilding. Sometimes he drinks too much. Sometimes he talks about starting over somewhere new. He texted once from an unknown number months later. "Do you ever think about what could have been?" I didn't answer. Because I do think about it, and I'm grateful. Grateful that I walked in early that day. Grateful I didn't scream. Grateful I sent the screenshots. Grateful I refused to be gaslit into believing betrayal was spiritual growth. Grateful the wedding never happened. People sometimes ask if I regret how I handled it, if I regret exposing him, if I regret canceling everything. No, because here's the truth. Losing a wedding is painful. Losing money is inconvenient. But losing yourself to protect someone else's image? That's permanent. I chose discomfort. I chose clarity. I chose myself. And that was the best decision I ever